I was asked a question today, and it was really profound for me. It was really, it really kind of, I was, when I was saying it, I was just like talking because I was so emotionally attached to the shootings and to all the stuff that's going on that when I mentioned it, it was almost like if I said it in passing I didn't realize how much it could have or touched people. I mentioned that I was a cutter. So, being the person who doesn't want to run away from any subject, being the person who will talk about anything, because that's just what I do, I'm going to kind of talk about that today. So, yes, I am a cutter. When it started was a couple, maybe 2005, I believe. It really, really got bad. One thing about cutters is when you usually hear someone say that they're cutters, you usually think about like teenage girls, who want to get in. And a lot of people say things like, "Oh, you're a cutter. You just want attention." And it's much, much deeper than that. And I think people who approach cutters like that could really be in danger of making it worse for them. It could very well lead to suicide. So I want to encourage you, if you know someone who's a cutter, even if they're little tiny chicken scratches, make sure you know that there's support, and there is support out there for them. There's places like UMass. Can't think of really a whole bunch of other places, but there's places where they really can find support, and you can find support too, to get help with a person who's dealing with self-esteem issues and things like that. So usually when people start cutting, it is a self-esteem issue. That's the most common reason. The more common reason that people cut, they have self-esteem problems. They think less of themselves. They hate themselves to a really, really, really difficult level. And cutting is a resort of feeling a certain kind of pain to take them out of the pain. It's kind of hard to explain. It's almost like when you're suffering a depressive, emotional pain, it feels sometimes almost like someone has like saran wrap wrapped around your face, wrapped around your body, and you just got to do anything to break out of it. You got to do anything to get out of that skin. And how a lot of people, how cutters do it is as soon as you cut, you get that instant shock of pain, and then the endorphins and all that stuff kick in, and then the scar starts healing, and that's what a lot of them get out of it. So it is often connected to a self-esteem issue. For me, it was something different at the beginning. So I have severe anxiety. And severe anxiety is not nothing to play with. I mean, sometimes even if I'm driving and I have an anxiety attack, I have to pull over. I have to breathe, make sure I get in control of myself before I continue. So, when you have a severe anxiety, it really messes with your life. And one of the things that was cool to me about well, not cool, but one of the things about it was some people, when they're dealing with depression and anxiety, they kind of just wallow in it and sit in it, and they want it to take control of their lives. Me, I was like, I'll do anything to get out of it, anything at all. So when it first started happening, I didn't know what it was. What happened was I went online, of course, and this was like years and years ago. So, this was before the old cliche of if you go to WebMD and you type in something like, I have a headache, what does that mean? And you go to WebMD and then it says, oh, like signs that you're having brain cancer or a brain aneurysm. Or, they'll diagnose you with the worst things in the universe if you just have a stuffy nose. So I was like, I had, my insurance was off and on at the time. I really didn't have health insurance. And I was like, man, I really need something. I need to do something to get out of this funk. I'm having anxiety. And if I'm not having like complete anxiety, then I'm depressed. So it's like depression or anxiety. And then I'm having anxiety because I'm depressed. Then I'm depressed because I'm having anxiety. So it was like a constant struggle that I was going through, and I could not figure out what could stop it. It wasn't common for us to like go to each other and be like, hey, hey sis, I'm having hey sister, I'm having an anxiety attack, or hey sister, I'm feeling a little depressed today. We were like we were at least thought to have been a lot tougher, and we wouldn't admit things like that to each other. So so when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, and you're telling people like you want to tell someone that you're dealing with it, so you don't go through it alone, but you have this sense of pride or this sense of toughness. Who can you go to? You can't go to your family. Couldn't go to my mother and my father. My father was always like, I've never seen my father cry in my life. So like to go, and he was always like tough, like hey, do this. He was really, really like like not militant, but he was he was like a tough guy. So it was difficult to deal with, or to I couldn't go to him like, Dad, I'm having depression and anxiety. What do I do? So I couldn't go to him. It was just difficult to go to people. Like my family is still like, if I told my sister I love you right now, she would probably look at me and say, "What do you want?" So that it was not common. It was not easy for us to be sharing. So of course, when I was like, how do I deal with it? I went online. I went to the internet. Shout outs to the internet. And I went to this. I couldn't find any real good answers. So I went to this message board. And I was like, man, how do you deal with anxiety and depression? Because, I can't let my boys know. I can't let people know that I'm dealing with it. How do I deal with it? And one girl, she was there, and she says, to deal with my depression and anxiety, I cut, and it snaps me right out of it. And they in this message board were talking about it like it was a positive thing. Like I was like, I'm desperate enough. Let me try it. So I remember I got a blade. I opened up a old razor, broke it up, and then I tried it. And sure enough, it was like almost like a shock. You know what? It kind of felt like a defibrillator. Like when they go 3, 2, 1, clear, and they hit you. It's like that shock I felt like I got when I did it. And then when I did that shot, when I got that, when I did it, and it was just like a tiny little paper cut too. It wasn't even anything crazy. I felt good for like an hour. It would go away. But then, of course, after a little while, the anxiety and the depression came in. So then I went back to the message board, and the people on the message board was like, "Look, man, it can get addictive, so don't do it a lot. Just do it just enough to get by." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So another little chicken scratch. What's that? So I have another little chicken scratch, and then next thing you know, feel better for a couple of hours, and then back to, so it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. What I noticed happening though was, as depression and anxiety was getting worse and was getting tougher, the little chicken scratches weren't working good enough. So of course, what do you do if you don't think the medicine is working enough? And at the time, cutting was medicine. What do? Oh, you got to go deeper. So then, the chicken scratches turned into more severe cuts. The scratches turned into cuts. And so, I was doing it like that. And, it got to the point where, little scratches and little cuts became big scratches and big cuts. The cuts, it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm about to go to sleep. I need to cut before I go to sleep. That's how severe it was getting. That's how much I started to need need to do something like that. And it's no different. Like people say drugs. Oh, like, oh, Will, man, you never did drugs. You don't do this. You don't drink and stuff like that. It's like, listen, cutting is no different. It's the same thing. You get a need for it. You have to do it. You have to go through the pain, and then you get anxiety and depression, and you got to snap yourself out of it. If you don't and there's a lot more help now. There's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more. Texas just said, "Shout out the internet." No, I was being sarcastic. Beware of advice you get from certain sources. That's the point of what I'm trying to say. Thank you for that clarification, Texter. Definitely, if you are suffering from depression, anxiety, or anything, please do not go to the internet for answers, because that's how I ended up the way I am. So I started. So I was doing that as a way to get through, depression, anxiety. Dudes were asking, yo, what's going on with you? Man, it's stupid. I was doing this and this happened. I was fighting, they're like trying to lie and make up war stories. But what I was really doing was I was trying to get through the day, like through the depression and anxiety. So I remember one time it got bad, and I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to go to sleep. Let me cut once, and I cut so deep that I had to go to the emergency room, and I ended up getting, I think it was like 30 something. I know it was a lot. I got a lot of stitches, and I remember my wife telling me she can't do it. Like, she can't live like that. And I ended up getting sent to the Arbor, I think, in Boston. And the worst part about it was I missed my son's birthday. I was in there for 12 days, and my son's birthday, like, I missed it, and I can never get it back. I've been there for every other birthday except for that one, and that's what like helps motivate me now that I won't miss it. So yeah, so that one person today said that they thought that the scars on me were from being burned or in a fire or anything, and they said, and they were like, I didn't know you were a cutter, and it was like the first time ever that I was like, yeah, yeah, I am. That's what I am. So yeah, so there it is. It's not nothing. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want to talk about it off the air, especially. So we can talk about it whenever. I'm open to it. I'm open to talking for it. I'm open to helping you out and helping you find sources for your different needs. The difference than the thin blue line, I see mental health as slavery. Black Lives Matter is more than just Black Lives Matter. All right. Yeah. So I be very careful what you get off the internet for advice for things that you're struggling with. That's the main thing. The second thing that worked for me, of course, was God. If I didn't go to God when I did go to Him, and I would not be here definitely right now. Once again, this is not about a debate about is God is real or not. I just know what He did for me, and He literally saved my life because things were getting a lot worse. So, like I said, if you know anybody who is cutting, or if you know anything, you can hit me up, and we can I can pray for them, and I can look online, try to get them help, because it is something that not a lot of people talk about, but it can be dangerous to some. So we'll get through it. So I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock shadow. If you're not familiar, please get familiar.